Tonight on The Breakdown, was the All Black Test in Washington DC good for US rugby? Chelsea Alley takes us on tour with the Black Ferns. And we look ahead to a sold-out test in Cardiff against Wales. Kia ora koutou katoa, hello and welcome to The Breakdown. Well, the All Blacks, they've taken their tour on the road. They've gone through North America. They've taken on the US Eagles. Job done, nice and simple. They got on a plane. Now it's off to Europe to take on this weekend. It's Wales, Sir John Kirwan, Mills Muliaina. JK, we're going to talk about the weekend. Big crowd in Washington, DC. Great to see the All Blacks in action. But in reality, did this test serve a valuable purpose?
Totally. Didn't they make a couple of $1 million, Millsy?
Yeah,
a couple of $1 million.
Yeah.
Did it help America? Probably not. Don't know, really. I think, you know, to get the public behind, you need to be competitive. But from an All Black brand point of view, I think, yeah, tick the box, move on. Yeah. They even left straight after the game, didn't they, on the plane?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was always going to be, obviously, get some dollars back in, promote the game. Looked like it was awesome, but I suppose from a player's point of view as well, somewhere different, you know, so they would have been excited by that. From the USA, a little bit hard when it's 100 points and, you know, I mean, was it a spectacle? Probably not.
You were picking 151 at half-time.
Yeah, well, I was looking like that.
It was looking like that. I mean, I thought to myself at the time as it's going on, in fact, if we keep accelerating and playing the way we do, we didn't quite dominate the second half in the same way. But I look at the performances and go, surely, if you're the All Black selectors, there's not a huge amount in terms of guys putting up their hand for bigger assignments later on this tour you can take out of this performance, right?
I think, you know, they would have went in with some goals, had a look at a couple of players, but their minds would have been set on what's going to happen this weekend against Wales. So, you know, blow, you know, some cobwebs out of the guys, having had 2 weeks off, get some structure back into it and really focus, hone in on, you know, next week. I think they probably would have already got a plan in place in terms of before this game about who's going to start against Wales too.
Yeah, like the All Blacks, you know, and you guys know full well that when they look at that game, there'll be things that they'll be looking at they won't be happy with. I didn't think the bench particularly came on and did well. Not their fault, you know, it's a loose game, it's 70-odd points when you get on, but they all tried to throw the ball around a bit, so it sort of just broke the game up a wee bit. But at some stage, you sort of got to go, you know, if you're Damien McKenzie, you're happy. He's played exactly the game we want to see him play. He's putting pressure on Geordie. Mo'unga goes out there, says, right, you know, and then Bowden comes on late and does well. So, you know, there were guys, you know, the young Lord got out there, good, looked good, you know, get a test match. But it was never going to be about it being at risk. No injuries, get the game done, get on the plane, tick the box, move on.
Well, let's get some context out of this game from someone who was on the ground in Washington, DC. One of our own here, has been in and around Sky for a long time, has been in the States now. He's a rugby consultant for Rugby United in New York. He went back to New York earlier on. I caught up with Rick Solizzo and talked about this challenge that US rugby faces. Rick, you have returned back to the big smoke from Washington, DC. I want to talk to you about the test match, though, between the All Blacks and the Eagles. From your perspective, was this game a success?
Look, I know the scoreline was tough on the Eagles and for USA Rugby, but really I think for people to see, and particularly the USA Eagles players, to see how rugby can be played at that pace. You know, I mean, 70-80% of the tries were scored, they were launched from the All Blacks' own 22. So to experience that rugby firsthand, to see the skill and the fitness and the desire to attack from anywhere, that can only be good for us here in the US. To see that firsthand, I think will have a massive influence.
Where do you think that influence is going to take effect, if it is going to take effect, and who needs to grasp it? Is it simply the players? Is it the coaches? Is it a mentality in and around the game?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I didn't really appreciate it till I moved up here, but this is a vast, vast place, and there's, you know, there's a lot of people with different ideas. I mean, every state almost have a different approach to the game, a different mentality. You got to understand here on the East Coast, for example, they're exposed a lot to the Premiership because You get up in the morning, the Premiership's on TV, you have your breakfast, and they see a lot of Premiership rugby, but Super Rugby, for example, is on at 4 o'clock in the morning, so no one ever watches it. Whereas on the West Coast, obviously, it's different. So there's a lot of influences from South Africa, from the UK, from New Zealand, from Australia. And I mean, I think what's important for the US is they find their own DNA, that they don't look at, how do they play it there? How does New Zealand do it? How does Ireland do it? How does Wales, South Africa, whatever? And that's, that's something they'd probably be searching for. And just finding that's going to be crucial to them.
You're a consultant with a Major League Rugby team in New York. And so when you looked at the potential of the players in the international game, is it there on the horizon? Can you see the improvements, given the fact they haven't managed yet to qualify for the next Rugby World Cup after dropping games to Uruguay?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I just want to put that Uruguay thing into a bit of context. I mean, Uruguay are not a bad side. They beat Fiji at the World Cup. The USA beat them here in the US and then lost to Uruguay. And beating Uruguay and Uruguay has proven pretty tough for the US over the years. But in saying that, I think the USA rugby has got some massive challenges. I think they've really got to sort out their development pathways. And the thing that I find here is it's a lot of fragmentation because everyone thinks they have the answer, and because of the vastness of the place, it's hard for USA Rugby to say, right, everyone, this is what we're going to do. Now, that's easy in New Zealand. We all do the same thing. We all follow the same models. And also we get first pick of all the best athletes. Now, rugby doesn't get that here. So there are some great programs going on at the moment to shoulder tap some outstanding athletes and turn them into rugby players, and some of that work's going on at the moment. I know we're looking at some players like that that have got through an academy. They've got a limited rugby experience, but they're either college wrestlers or college football players who are every bit the athlete than anyone I've seen in New Zealand is. They're just great athletes, but so it's just a chance. Sorry, it's just my Uber Eats was just ringing me to tell it's downstairs.
Welcome home.
Yeah, 7 pizzas. I think the athletes are there. It's just getting them into rugby.
Is it gaining then Major League Rugby, the fact that this professional competition, which is still developing and emerging, is it getting any recognition or traction in the US?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what I'm talking about. It's pulling it together, I mean, I think Major League Rugby is doing an amazing job at the moment. You got to remember, I think it's like in its 4th year, 5th year, something like that. So it's relatively new. But it's giving a focal point. So now there's something to build to. If you're a young rugby player, I'll play for my club, I'll play for my college. The goal of playing for my Major League team. So there's now a structure to build and develop talent through to. So I've been really impressed. I'm a bit of a skeptic, but I've been really impressed with what I've seen with Major League Rugby. And I think that it's, it's going to really help the development of players. It's going to really, someone like Andy Ellis has had a massive influence here in New York because not only is he a good player, but he's able to teach everyone around him. What does a pro look like? And for our guys, they're sort of thinking to themselves, oh my God, watching the All Blacks, how do they play like that? Well, then now they can talk to someone like Andy and go, well, you've done it. Talk me through it.
So in terms of that development, as the players improve, though, they need competition, the US. I mean, and of course, these times have been very difficult for everyone. The last 2 years, there have been limited opportunities. Schedules have been thrown out the door. But is the Pacific Rim, is that the answer for the US to get that regular competition? Does World Rugby need to create something for them so they can get consistency?
I'm not sure if I'm right, but I don't think the Eagles are playing again till the World Cup qualifiers in July next year. So, it's pretty tough. I mean, so I think World Rugby needs to really help them. It's so important for World Rugby for the game to take hold here in the US. And, there was all this talk about the World Cup possibly in 31, that for the next 10 years, that there's a lot of work done from outside help US get stronger and finding them fixtures. You know, you say the Pacific Rim, well, that's a long way from New York. So, you know, it's close if you're on the West Coast. So the good thing about the US is wherever you base the team, you're close to something. There's opportunities, and I think they need more games, more opportunities to play, gel, and develop. I mean, but I think it's also important, you know, that we do recognise what a special performance that was by the All Blacks. I mean, I know there was a lot of emotion around Sean's passing for the team, and there's just a lot of things that also happened. You know, you had a lot of young players that were giving a chance to prove themselves. They've been sitting around, and it really reminded me, and you were in this game, of that performance in the World Cup against Japan, where your whole lot of, in '95, you had a whole lot of players. This was their chance to really say, you know what, I can do my bit for the team. And I thought that was one of the most incredible performances I've seen from the All Blacks for a long, long time, despite the opposition. I thought, and you, as I say, you were part of that game.
Look, I thought it was going to be under threat, given the way they'd sort of played in the first 40 minutes. Look, Rick, it's great to get your insights. I know you've turned down a Nets game to come and talk to us on the breakdown, which is fantastic commitment. Uber Eats have just arrived. I mean, I don't want your food getting cold. Thanks for joining us on the breakdown, mate. You're a good man.
Can I be honest? It was the Brooklyn Nets or 7 pizzas, and pizzas are always going to win.
Thanks, Rick. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Goldie.
JK, good mate of yours. Is that par for the course with
8 pizzas?
8 pizzas?
Yeah,
7 pizzas?
totally. He can eat a pizza.
He can eat a pizza?
Yeah, not scared of a pizza.
You're not scared of a pizza. You've got pizza on the menu tonight.
Pizza tonight, yeah, at home.
Outstanding. All right, let's talk about some of the things he was talking about. Are we talking about the long game with the US, like Japan? Japan, the team that, like say, 1995, we win by 145 points. But look where they are now, Mills. They're beating South Africa. They're in the quarterfinals of World Cup. Is it the same strategy, or does it need to be different with the US?
Look, I think what he speaks about in terms of how vast it is, he's absolutely talking the truth, because there's so many challenges in USA. You know, he talks about academies, you know, picking guys out of academies. These aren't the academies that we know what they are, the academies where they're coming out of the school system right through to a provincial system. These are personal academies that someone has gone in and said, I'm going to run an academy and I'm going to try and get kids out of school to come through this rugby grade. So already you've got challenges there, because that academy's successful, then it's that person's ideas that he wants to put forward. You know, and so there's so many of that. So when you almost look at it and strip it back, it's almost amateur. And then when you come together as USA, they're kind of just picking out of these academies or guys that are playing basically similar to club rugby. The MLR have sort of brought that together in somewhat in terms of while they're actually sitting around a table and talking about how it sort of works. So I think it needs a different model. Japan's a little bit different because it's purely run by the companies, JK, and that's probably where the pushes come from, the success of Japanese rugby.
Yeah, and look, 20 years in the making. I went over there, you know, at the end of my career, and it was the first sort of influx of players starting to go, keep getting younger, guys going at a younger age. But it's been 20 years in Japan to making those playoffs was a really strong competition. A university competition is really strong. Then they go to the top league, like you mentioned, Millsy, where you've got great investment from the clubs. And then they've been, like when I took over Japan, it was interesting. I went for the USA job at the same time. So I flew into Japan, then went to the USA. The difference was that we got into the Pacific Nations Cup. We played against Fiji, Samoa consistently, right? We had the Asian Cup, Pacific Cup. I went to the US, and like you mentioned, it was just totally split from one coast to the other. My original idea and what I presented to them was put a New York franchise in the Premiership League in the UK, and on the West Coast, LA should play in a super competition. But I think the MLR is probably the better solution, but it's going to take 20 years.
Yeah. And that's what football they went through in America as well. You think about the fact that soccer, when it got to the same situation, trying to develop it, and you see where they are now. They're qualifying for Football World Cups. They've certainly been competitive on the international stage. But more importantly, it's taken a grasp in terms of the fan base. There are fans and there are pockets of it. If I look at it, though, are we seriously talking about this as a possibility for a Rugby World Cup hosting responsibility? The fact is this, should World Rugby look at this, you know, in 31 and go, you know what, we probably need to take this opportunity?
I think if you're looking from a financial point of view and you're saying there's definitely a following there, there's pockets, but their pockets are pretty big in terms of, of the following all over the place. Is it? I mean, they're going to need to get themselves together. I think the challenge for USA is coming together. As I said, the MLR, they have slowly come together and have just sort of come up with ideas that a governing body in terms of the MLR are actually running it. But there's still so much other challenges they need to get right before it actually goes there to promote. From a financial point of view, could possibly work, JK?
Oh, I think it's a no-brainer. Like, what are we just going to have it in France again, or have it in South Africa or New Zealand again? Like, really established rugby nations. I mean, if we want to be serious about growing our game, that's what FIFA did. And when was that? 2003? I mean, that's probably 15 or 20 years ago now. Already they had the Soccer World Cup, right?
And they're going to Qatar.
Yeah, they're going to Qatar, exactly.
Football World Cup, when you're not a major player when you think about football around the world.
And so I think the interesting thing that the Americans will bring to is a real professionalism to our sport. They've already started where you've got to pay for the franchise, you've got to pay a certain amount of dollars. It'll be run like they do their NFL. So, yeah, I think if we want to grow our game, where else are we going to go? You've probably got Russia, China and America if we want to grow the game, and America's probably the easiest option.
For me, I still felt as though the progress was small, given from where we played them last time to what happened on the weekend. I looked at it, Mills, and go, you know what? I didn't see the athletes that I thought I would see playing for the US. Now, I know they've got a number of players who are playing in Europe, but the one thing you cannot substitute at the international level is speed. And there was no secondary defence, there was no recovering. The fact we were making space and ground on the outside easily, I was expecting to see from them more speed to be able to contain us, because in the end, combine our speed with our skill, they were in a situation that they could ever stop what happened on the weekend. Yeah,
and the thing is, there's always been that talk about the resources that they've got, in terms of the athletes. You look at the NFL players and the ability to try and get those sort of guys that are in colleges to actually play rugby that have perhaps missed out. We still haven't seen that, but perhaps we haven't seen the professionalism of the rugby in general in the US, and exactly what I've spoken about. The academies, they're so different. It's kind of like you starting up your own academy, JK starting up his and going, he'll probably pump a little bit more money into it because he's got more than both of us, and I start mine. Okay, so that's kind of how it is, and then we come together. But JK, he has the major vote because he's got the most money. So those are the kind of the challenges that they face.
I like that.
You're talking his sort of talk. That's what you're talking.
I think what surprised me about this American side was I didn't see any African American players that I was expecting. There's been that crossover Isles and those amazing speedmen. I mean, they're brilliant athletes, and I enjoy watching the NFL. And when you talk about crossover, there's 3,000 college students that don't get picked up, don't get drafted. I was hoping to see a little bit more of those types of players, and I know I spoke to Ricardo about it, and he said it's just really difficult. So what they probably need to do is start playing rugby in the colleges and in schools, so that the kids, you might play American football, but you've also played a bit of rugby, so that transition's not as bad. But I was a bit surprised actually at the mix of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spent a lot of time talking about the US because it was significant for them. We shouldn't forget, though, for a number of All Blacks, this was an important opportunity to impress. One of those on the day, and he was in outstanding form, was Richie McCaw. We had the opportunity here on the breakdown to chat with him just straight after the game. He got into his number ones as he was just about to head to the airport.
I think we take a lot out of it. It's a first for a lot of the boys that started today, a debut for Josh Lord, and I think just to be over here in America where it's a whole new experience, it's a different ball game, and just to be on tour with the boys, it's been awesome. And a lot of the guys that played today haven't had minutes, haven't played many games or at all, so it was good to get some minutes under their belts. One of those games where you sit back, think, years to come and just think how awesome the experience was. Man, the boys just absolutely loved the atmosphere, the intensity of the crowd. It's just something we've never experienced before. And just the history that Washington, D.C. has as well has been awesome to understand a lot of that. Get around on the tour bus and lime scooter around and see some of these things that we've only seen in movies as Kiwi kids growing up. So those are cool experiences, and we'll take a lot of success around, being together as a team, and hopefully we can move forward and take the experience over to Wales. It's been a tough week for a lot of the boys having to deal with it. But we wanted to come out here and honour him, and play in a way that we could honour him and make him proud. And I think you've seen throughout the week just how much of an impact he had on New Zealand rugby and just the people that he had around him. He made people smile, laugh. He did a lot for New Zealand rugby. He did a lot for Māori and for haka. So it was real important for us to put a good performance out there. We know that Wales is going to be a different challenge, but I think this is a different All Blacks team we've seen in the last couple of years. We're able to have fun and in times where it's intense, and we're keeping each other honest, and we've got a lot of new young boys that are keeping the older boys honest as well. So we know that Wales is going to be a different challenge, but we're going to be jumping on the plane smiling, and we can't wait to walk towards that opportunity.
The interesting thing for me is whether or not he's smiling when they named the starting team against Wales, JK. For Richie McCaw coming back into the side, very, very good. It's one of our favourite debates here on The Breakdown. Is he going to be the guy at first five against Wales starting, and where does Beauden Barrett fit in the picture? Or is it Beauden who gets the responsibilities first?
No, I think Beauden gets the responsibilities first, just through having come through the championship. Richie's just joined the side, and I think he will go for combinations against Wales, because I reckon that's one of our riskiest games on this trip.
Does that mean you're talking the Barrett brothers are back together again?
Totally.
Mills, for you?
I think Mo'unga starts. I think it's a good chance for him to come back. I know he's been away from the championship, so I disagree with JK on that. I think he's the more settled. So the interesting bit for me is I actually think Geordie starts at the back too, to help sort of grow that combination. I think he's warranted the fact that he starts at fullback. I think Richie just brings something different. I still, even though Beauden's great, I still think he's a little bit shy of being his absolute best, and so he's probably more suited coming off the bench and finishing the way he is, just to get him right for the following year. Mo'unga seems a little bit more settled to me in terms of how he's directing play, getting his forwards. Yeah, I know this game, is one-sided, but I just think he looks a little bit more composed in terms of what he's almost doing. Whereas Beauden, when he sort of come on, he's just concentrating on finishing as opposed to organising.
Is this a problem though, when you've got guys who are so close? No. Well, is it a problem when you've got
the greatest problem you can have,
close to each other in terms of how they can impact a game and drive a game and are special players, JK? And you're in a position when you're trying to select a side, and then you've got to consider all of those factors that Mills is talking about, the things you've talked about, and you're going, when there's that hard to separate, does it particularly then come down to the team that you're going to be playing against and knowing how you're going to have to beat that team? Wales are a very good side. They're going to be very, very physical. What are we going to need? Are we going to need to play a territory game? Are we going to need to play a running game? Is that why you've gone with Beauden Barrett?
I've gone with Beauden because I believe that he is the best under pressure from a leadership point of view. Right? And I think Mills is... this has got nothing to do with ability for me. They're both world-class. They can both turn a game on its head. They're both as good as each other. But who is going to take control of the football team?
He's played 99 tests, though, Beauden.
99 tests, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I believe putting him at fullback at the last World Cup was the wrong decision. These two guys need to fight it out, take control of the football team and be able to run a game. That's what it comes down to.
I think he'll start if he's involved, because I think in a 100th Test match, I think they would have been planning for this. I think he would have gone over there. He'll get his opportunity to play. Did well in the Rugby Championship. You mentioned leadership, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because Sam Cane's the next point of discussion, and the loose forwards, because we've got about 8 of them or 9 of them. They're everywhere. I mean, if Scott Barrett was over there, he's not at the moment, we'd have another option. But there they are, the 8 guys who are in contention. They're all in contention. They're all playing now. Everyone's impactful in different ways, but the first question for me is, at what time is it right for the All Black captain from last year, who was the Kelvin Tremaine Player of the Year last year, outstanding for the All Blacks, Sam Cane, when is the right time for him to assume the duties as the starting 7, or does he just have to wait his turn, Mills?
I don't think he's sort of warrants a start this weekend. I think he's still, although he's mentioned the fact that he feels really good off the field, I think he'd bring him off the bench and look to start him against in Italy also, and then see where he goes from that in terms of resuming, the captaincy role. I don't think, in terms of the other Lucy's, I think we've got too much strike power, for those guys to sit it out and have, I wouldn't say a risk, because, there's special guys that can actually do that. He's one of them. Is Richie McCaw is obviously another one that can actually come out being away for a long time and get up to that level. But in terms of this week, I just think it's probably better off coming off the bench.
JK's biding his
No,
time.
I was just thinking, I don't know if you can bring that graphic back up of all the players, but what I'd do is eliminate straight away. And for me, Frizzell and Kane go straight out of that as on-form players. I agree with Mills. I think Sam Kane, let's not question his ability and how good he is. He's just come off an injury. I'd leave him out of this week and he'd put him in a captain, rest Whitelock against Italy and start him and play him. But if you think about it in form right now, I would take out Frizzell and take him out, and then it's still a nightmare.
And this is the debate I said at 10. That was the debate at first fives. You've only got two guys.
But also you've got to keep an eye on the future. I would like to see Popoli'i start, just because I think he is Kane-esque, right? He's going to be very, very good. So playing him against Wales, I think he's had a good championship, got a little bit injured. I'd just like to see him get out there.
But there's a flow-on effect, Mills. If you decide that Dalton Popoli'i is your open side flanker, does that automatically mean that Ardie Savia becomes your number 8?
Yeah, it definitely does. And if I was to look at last week's team, the most obvious thing to do to, in transition is to put Ardie at 8, leave those other two out there in terms of, Papali'i at 7 and also Jacobson at 6, and then bring Kane, off the bench. So I know he plays.
Where's Akira gone? Hold on.
Yeah, I know. I was going to come to that. That's the hardest part. I think. You made a point in terms of, do we pick guys based on who we're actually playing? And I think you do in this case. I think you do when it comes to the Lucy's, because I think Akira has been fantastic throughout the championship, Bledisloe Cup and things like that. But I just think he's kind of plateaued a little bit, and he just needs that time to get himself, into that sort of groove.
Mills, I'm all over that, mate. Because this is Northern Hemisphere. This is not championship.
So is that not Akira Ioane?
I think you bring him off the bench, mate. It'd be devastating when they're tired.
But Ethan Blackadder. Hold on, this is guys who are in form. You talk about Ethan Blackadder's form and his versatility. Akira, who was outstanding against the Wallabies here in New Zealand, as was Richie McCaw when we locked away the Bledisloe Cup. He was showing this sort of form, and then momentarily against South Africa, not having the same impact. Does that mean all of a sudden he loses out? And then Ethan Blackadder's versatility, played at open side, plays hard, plays straight, plays direct. I mean,
the hard thing about it.
You can cut overlay up very and make them all look flash, but let's be honest. I mean, you've got to eliminate people. You can only eliminate 2. I think it's a.
Let's just not play locks.
What's that? Not play locks.
Just put them all out there.
But we've got a scrum and we've got to have line-out options. And so where does that leave Jacobson? I mean, is Jacobson at 6?
I don't disagree, but what I'm talking about is not who's actually in form. What I'm thinking about is how do I get to the World Cup with the same problem with all of those guys being test hardened. That's why I want Popoli'i out there, right? And if you just do like for like, I think Akira should be out there. But what are we going to do? Like, should we put Blackadder at 8 then? And rest Ardie? No, you probably can't do that. You need leadership. So they can all probably play, but you've got to have an eye on the future. So what is the future? For me, it's not Sam Kane at the moment. Bring Sam back in slowly. Play someone there that he's got to get out and grind, because it is Northern Hemisphere. Way more people on the ground. It's a different type of football.
Mills, any chance they're all pretty much on trial for maybe the last game of the season for France?
Well,
we're hoping we get to that point where everyone's come through it unscathed, they've got an opportunity to play, they've seen some growth, but then you're going, this is France, this is the team that we're going to play in the first game of a Rugby World Cup. Do we want to make a statement? And is that what maybe... Do they put pressure on the whole lot of them and say, guess what? We haven't penciled in one name for that final game. You show us you deserve to play that test match.
Well,
is that a possibility?
I think that they'll be looking at that, but let's not underestimate what they've got in front of them. Initially when we looked at the Welsh team and there's a few guys out, this is a very strong Welsh team. So they'll probably put out, a fairly sort of almost to 100% sort of team out there. But there'll be an eye on making sure you finish the job. And we all know the form of France at the moment. They've got some good young talent coming through. But, let's not sort of shy away from, what's happening this week. And this is why they've sent guys over early. This is why they've, they're prepared the way they are, because they know what they're up for. You set the tone by this first game on tour against Wales, and that'll be the focus for the coaches.
I'll tell you what we're not shying away from is our trivia question for the night. JK is on a roll. He's feeling great about his game. We are bringing in everyone into this, going to give you an opportunity. But Hugh Bainan is our guest questionnaire. Let's see what Hugh's got for us tonight.
Kia ora, I'm Hugh Bainan and I'm a proud Welshman living here in Aotearoa. Here's my trivia question for you. In what year was the haka performed in the sheds instead of on the field before the All Blacks test against Wales?
That's wrong on stuff too.
Yeah, I hope you don't get this wrong, Mills. Where was Hugh? That was
Is it the
nice
Parnell
where
Basin, wasn't he? Where was he? What Puna?
Sun's shining. Sun's not shining here in Auckland, I can tell you that.
It wasn't in Wales, I can tell you that much.
It wasn't. It was the. You're feeling confident?
I know the answer.
You know the answer? I tell you what, I reckon we'll go 3 for 3 here. I think we'll all get this one right. I'll tell you what, though, we'll see after the break.
Everybody waiting to see if the All Blacks will do the haka. It would seem not. They've said that they won't do it in public today, so they went and did it in the dressing room, and here's what happened a few minutes ago.
It's always fascinating, wasn't it, when you do an open training session, right? And what do they all come and get their videos out for? The scrums.
Yeah,
they all go to the scrum. We're doing all the flash moves in the backs, and they're always going there for the scrums. Never hated it. Trivia before the break. Hugh Bainan asked us, OK, what year was the famous haka in the changing rooms before the All Blacks took the field in Cardiff? Mills, I really hope you get this right, because you were there.
Yeah.
You were there, so
I just seen JK's answer, and I think I'm thinking I'm going to go with him. I think I'll hit it wrong.
Well, you hit it wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was 2005, but I didn't see Tana there, so I think it's 2006.
Oh, I think it's 2006.
I think it's 2006.
2006. Run us through just briefly what the scenario and how bizarre was it to be. I mean, who was in front of you?
I can't even remember who was in front of me, but yeah, it was a bizarre week because we'd gone there the year before, and it was the 100th Test match between the two teams, and they asked us if we could do it the same way as what it was back then, and that was the haka first and then the national anthems. And then when we said, as long as it went back when we came back the following year, and they said, yeah, it's fine. We got there and they said it was either that way or there's nothing at all. That was my understanding. So it didn't really bother us until the end of the week, and we just thought, well, we'd do it in the changing rooms. So we did it in the changing rooms, and then gave us some motivation to go out there and perform.
Do you think Ali put himself in front of the camera?
Oh, absolutely he did. I think he asked the cameras to be in there right beside him. And there's no doubt in my mind.
And that's what you call all access. Look at this. That's all access right on behind one camera. And that was only played in New Zealand, though. I don't think that was played around the world. But where are you hiding?
Away from the cameras, man. I'll tell you what was weird about it is when we got out, everyone wanted us to do the haka. And there was always that sort of, I suppose, them saying that they don't want us to do it, so it's awesome.
I remember watching that game. It was an amazing game of rugby. The All Blacks were outstanding that day, and I measured the time in play because I was trying to work out how you stay with the All Blacks because fitness doesn't work. You guys were hanging on to the ball for like a minute and a half.
So
5 or 6 times a half.
We are assuming we got it right. Let's Hugh, confirm with us, please. Did we get it right?
And the answer is, of course, 2006.
Well done, JK.
Nice, JK. Yeah. Same. I had 2005.
Almost. Well, that's what you call all access. What I want you to do, though, as well, in terms of trivia, send us one in with a question and answer to the breakdown at sky.co.nz. We'll put you on the show and see whether or not you can catch us out. That was all access behind the scene in Cardiff. We've got all access coming up Thursday night with the Black Ferns as they prepare not just for this tour, but a Rugby World Cup next year.
Being a Black Fern, it means whānau, it means fun, it means mana wahine.
Join the Black Ferns camp
Push up, 7s or 15s.
as they prepare
I get out.
for their northern tour.
I love laying down that whittle to our opposition.
We're going there to send those girls the message that that cup is ours.
I want to start sending those signals right now.
Women in black jerseys give little girls power.
All access, Black Ferns. Premieres Thursday, Sky Sport 1.
Look, the world champions, I can't wait to see them behind the scenes, JK, the fact that they have built this legacy. They are undoubtedly the best women's rugby team of all time. one of the great rugby teams, to get that sort of access, to get sense from Glenmore and the players and the coaches about what they're preparing for and how they drive themselves?
Yeah, I just think, you know, one of the greatest things you do is tour. One of the greatest things you do is tour the Northern Hemisphere and to get access and see, you know, the Black Ferns living those moments. I'm really looking forward to it.
It's awesome, isn't it? Because, like, I know Richie McCaw spoke about the All Blacks going off and seeing all those monuments and things like that, and that's not what it's about, you know. It's only a little part of their sort of week that they get to go out and see. The big part is what the girls are going through now. It's sort of all that talking behind the scenes about what they sort of going through and some of the challenges as well of actually touring and the motivation behind, you know, their success.
And, you know, there's going to be, you know, you're going to see things you wouldn't normally get to see. And for them, this tour coming up, these 2 tests against England, 2 against France, JK, in terms of what's coming up in a year's time, Super Rugby, the development of the game continues, but they haven't played for a long time. This is going to be a difficult challenge for them. They'll get a real gauge where they are. This is 2019, the last time they played. This is against the Wallaroos. They've got to find out pretty quickly where they need to work on and how much better they need to be. Yeah, and
we don't hold back in saying that, you know, both our men's and our women's sides about World Cups, about winning World Cups. I mean, the female game has had this incredible and rightly so rise, like more participation. So it's really, really fundamental that as a brand, that they lay down the gauntlet and say we are the world's best and can do that. So these test matches are fundamental. Doesn't matter if they lose one, but they need to get out there and really get ready for next year. Find out there's a young football team, you know, who's going to be up to actually playing at the highest level. And I think that, like the girls have always said, it's the big jump, and that's why they want to do Super Rugby. So a lot of those girls come straight out of the Farah Palmer and they're going straight into Test match. It's going to be a big ask.
And Mills bringing in the likes of some of the players who have been and had success in the Sevens environment. Great news coming out, the Olympic Committee announcing that the Black Ferns Sevens were announced they were the best women's team at the Olympics. Wow. So you're talking about that level of pressure, that level of expectation. Those girls going into the environment well is going to bode Glenmore, give them experience, give them those threats and opportunities to, I suppose, keep growing the game, but also get comfortable with who he's going to have available for next year.
And the X factor he's got. And so the biggest challenge for them is the fact they haven't played, you know, Test match rugby for a very long time, whereas the teams that they're playing against, they have their own sort of Six Nations. So getting up to speed in terms of Test match footy, testing out, you know, obviously with the coaching staff, you know, who's going to be capable enough to go to that next level, because there's some pretty young girls that have gone over there, but also, you know, being in the environment and sort of growing, what's in there, their culture and things like that, which is going to be massive. So I'm looking forward to sort of seeing how they go, but also, you know, leading into next year's Super Rugby as well. You know, so who's actually talented to come out of that and then progress on to the World Cup.
So we've had the opportunity to get all access behind the scenes as they prepare to go on tour. We've also managed to get Chelsea to get us in behind the scenes on tour, and she's keeping us up to date with her own diary of what's happening in the Northern Hemisphere.
What's up, guys? Chelsea Alley here. We have just been lucky enough to have a hit out against the Wales women's team, as well as the England under-20s team, ahead of our first Test match against England this coming weekend. We're lucky enough to play here at the London Irish Club, so let's go check out what some of the girls thought of our first hit out. I'm here now with our Captain Fantastic, Leslie Elder. That was our first hit out on international soil in over 2 years. So how did you find the week leading into the game, just to get the girls prepared for this moment?
Yeah, it's been a really good week. I think the energy in the team's been awesome. The girls have been really excited to be here, having fun, but putting in the work when they've needed to. It's been a good week leading into today.
Sweet, so we're heading into a massive test week, playing England, probably our biggest rivals. How are we going to lift another level throughout the week?
I think when we naturally just test match footy brings a level of pressure, and that pressure we welcome. So we're going to be expecting the girls to be a little bit more sharper, the detail to be a lot higher, and our accuracy and clarity to be, you know, top level. So we're building nicely.
And it's quite a long time away for our girls, away from whānau and friends at home. We've got 2 tests versus England and another 2 against France over in France. So what are the important things for you as a leader that you have to do to keep the girls, you know, engaged but happy and feeling at home as well?
Yeah, I think, a lot of work's been done in the background and leading into this tour to ensure that we've got the connection piece right, so that we're switching off when we need to switch off, and that we're connecting back to home as well. And people would have seen on our social media channels that the soul group in our team that master the connection and culture side of things have done a really good job to make sure we stay connected to home. So I think all the leaders are doing a great job.
Awesome, you certainly are doing a great job. One last message for our fans back home.
Just thank you so much for supporting us and following us. Make sure to tune in for next Sunday's game, against England.
It's gonna be good. Okay, here we are with two more rookies in the team, Ari Baylor and Renee Holmes. First hit out today, both played against England under 20s. How was it? How was the experience?
It was really good. It was a good game. It felt great to be back out playing a bit of footy after a couple of months not being able to because of lockdown in New Zealand. But yeah, real stoked to be back out on the pitch.
Nice. And Ren, you actually played against the England under 20s and then came on in the second game versus Wales. How was that?
Oh man, well, originally wasn't meant to, but so I wasn't very prepared, but any chance to play is amazing, and then it was so awesome coming on to play against that Wales.
And the NPC action, it was thick, it was fast, there was friendlies, but I tell you what's it done? It means over the next 2 weekends there's some massive, massive games. This is the Premiership. Look, Hawke's Bay, they're at home for the semi-finals. We know that. They've been awesome. There's plenty of congestion though, but the big match-up is going to be Tasman and Canterbury. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Auckland are still bottom of the table, but they've only played 2 games, so that's fine. That's all right, JK, don't worry about it. They are safe for next year. The Championship, Taranaki, well, they're going to be at home as well. They're 7 for 7, the perfect record. Manawatu and certainly fighting it out. They'll be in a semi-final position as well. The big game is going to be coming up. Southland taking on North and Otago, well and truly. So they're coming.
Why is that a big game? Why is that just because it's your Southland team? Why is it a big game? They have got 4 points below North Harbour, who are in lockdown with us.
And they make the semis, will they? They win this.
You just watch. You just wait and see. Let's look at the games then, if they're going to be like that. Canterbury take on Tasman. Massive for Canterbury. If they want to be part of the playoff picture, they need to win this game. Otago Wellington, that is a friendly competition. It'll be down Dunedin, so they'll throw the ball around in Forsyth Bar Stadium. Bay are plenty taking on Waikato. That's at Tauranga Domain. And then Manawatu Hawke's Bay. That'll be a great game. Both teams in good form, but Hawke's Bay have been outstanding this season. And there it is at Rugby Park in Invercargill. Southland taking on Northland. That could well be like a quarter-final.
So what are you saying? That Southland win, they can still make the playoffs?
They could slip in at 4th, then all of a sudden
That's ridiculous.
They could beat
Time
Taranaki,
their run nicely,
and
haven't they?
then it'll
Time their run.
They're going to time their run nicely, and all of a sudden they'll win the championship, and they won't be able to make it into. They won't get promoted. And what's all the big deal? Look, we shouldn't forget. I mean, for a lot of these players, these are important times. The fact that they're trying to prepare themselves for the next level, JK. So, yep, it's been disjointed. It's been a difficult season, but for a lot of these players, it's still important they finish well. And for Hawke's Bay, it is a chance for them to win a national title. You should not take that for granted, because the way they're playing, it's impressive. It's fun to watch. They would have been in the conversation regardless, I believe, of the circumstances we're in right now.
It'd be sort of quite sad if they did lose, because they have, been outstanding probably for a couple of years, but this has been their best season by far. Why, Mills? I don't really know why. Have they been building up to this? Have they got the same team together for a few years, which doesn't seem to be that easy to do at Bunnings level?
Oh, it's just consistency, I suppose, in selection, Jeff, isn't it? I mean, they came up from the lower grade last year, they won that, and it continued that through. But, man, I've just been impressed about the way they've sort of played the game. They've actually, thrown the ball around a bit, but thrown it around with accuracy in terms of what they're doing. So everyone's on the sort of same page, and they thoroughly deserve where they are. I'd love to see them against Taranaki, because they're both unbeaten teams, but the 2 different divisions.
Taranaki have won every crossover game. They're 4 crossover games, which has never been done before. Look, they're an impressive squad. I think, in some ways, what I look at these 2 teams and you go, there's a lot of guys who are involved with Super Rugby but don't play huge minutes. So when they get to the NPC, they're taking their opportunities. Like a Stephen Perafeta, who's not getting a chance to shine at Super Rugby. He's done all his training. This is his chance to play well. The other thing I think has helped Hawke's Bay, JK, is the fact the Ranfurly Shield has been a great motivator for them, getting good support, good crowds when they've been able to have crowds. But all of a sudden, it's galvanised them, trying to hold on to the log of wood, which has led to their strong performances, which I think is impressive. But if we turn all of our attention to coming this weekend, and it's Wales taking on the All Blacks. Wales are the Six Nations champions. JK, you look at this matchup, and there's only a handful of players who aren't available for Wales. They're going to be incredibly strong. This is going to be the next big test for the All Blacks in terms of where they're at in their game.
I also think, and Mills, you probably back this up, emotionally, they're like our biggest rival north, you know. We've never lost to them. Going to Cardiff Arms Park is special. When you're growing up, you want to play there. They've been consistently good under Gatlin. Pivac's also, although had a bit of a shaky start, he's got them right. They won the Six Nations. They're always hard to beat there. It's an amazing moment in your career.
70,000. Are going to be 70,000. They're doing all their tests, saliva tests, they get a COVID, they've been jabbed up and they're in, and it's going to be intense. And you think about that, that's another side of it for the All Blacks. Going to another level. A lot of those young guys that are in that squad, we mentioned the squad selections, I mean, that's going to play a part as well, dealing with that emotion, the dedication they have to the game. For some of those guys, they wouldn't have seen that before.
For a majority of those guys, you know, when we spoke about it before we came on, you know, when was the last time we went on India tour? 2018. So for a majority of those guys, they don't know what it's like to go to Cardiff, to travel there, and how the rugby over there is their number one sport, you know. So when you go into the game, when you're going in there and the roof is closed and there's 77,000 people singing, you can't hear anything. That's an experience in itself. So I guess when you look at that sort of that emotion that you're speaking about, they have to actually make sure that they contend with that and try and put that aside and focus on the game at hand.
And the technical differences are really big, right? So in the Southern Hemisphere, our rucks are played on our feet. Right? You get to ruck, you clean out. Northern Hemisphere, you'll have double the amount of players off your feet. So it's a different technique. You have to shove a lot of people off the ball. They'll slow it down. They won't give us any rhythm. It's just a different style of football, and it's not easy to adjust to quickly.
And that's what you're combating against. You're trying to play on top of the ground, and they're trying to slow it down. So it's a tussle between what sort of game plans that you want to end up playing. So ideally, we want to play them on top of the ground and run the ball around with accuracy. They want to slow it down and try and really, you know, get aggressive with us and win that contact.
And for someone with the experience of an Alan Wynne-Jones, one of the best locks to have played the game, his versatility, his toughness, his leadership, he'll want an All Black scalp, JK. He'll want to say that he beat the All Blacks. And there are very few opportunities you get, and they'll have every opportunity on the weekend. So I look at some of the experience, the likes of Gareth Anscombe, who's coming back in after a horrific injury before the Rugby World Cup. There'll be a New Zealand connection, but by the same token, this is a Wales team that will believe at home.
Oh, we talk about McCaw, we talk about Colin Meads, we talk about Kirkpatrick, we talk about inspirational leaders. Wynne-Jones is one of them. I mean, he has this incredible ability to get the players to play for him and for the country. He will be wanting that win. And for the Welsh players, this is their week. This is their life. They will put statues up of all of them if they win. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. I mean, they've still got the scoreboard up. When we lose, Pontypool, I went out there once, but they've still got the scoreboard up from 1972 or something. Yeah. Like, it is an amazing week, and it's right in the centre of town. It's just a great atmosphere, but not easy to deal with if you're a young fellow never been there.
No, 1953 it was. 1953 last time we lost them. You don't want to be on a watch.
You don't. I mean, it's going to happen one day, but you don't want to be in that team that happens. My biggest thing was that Dan Biggar's out, but Anscombe sort of controls it. The biggest key to them is your 9 and 10, whether they crack under pressure. And that's where, predominantly in the past, we've put pressure on sort of the Welsh teams.
It's going to be a fantastic occasion. It is on Sunday morning, 5 a.m. It all starts as we build up towards a kick-off. I can't wait to see which All Black team that Ian Foster and his selection side put together. We're all going to be good on Sunday morning. We'll be sharp, ready to go. JK?
I'll bring the coffee, boys.
You'll bring the coffee? That's what I like to hear. I tell you what, I can't wait for us to see you on Sunday, and then we'll be back next Monday night. As always, thanks for watching us on The Breakdown. We'll see you in 7 days' time.
It's a standoff.
Who's going to give first?
Yeah. Once again, here we go. Know the name, know the flow. Turn me up a little more. I'm setting traps on the lawn. I'm a maniac, well, you know I'm black to the bone. Thought you was good, huh? Take you out back, drink a little voice, huh? You don't see the work I put in all week.
It's just a delight to watch, isn't it?
Nitty gritty, this is
here he goes again.
get
One stop in.
used to hate.
He should get all the way.
When it all goes down, I'ma run this town.
Kieran Reid.
This is vintage Wales.
Now Aaron Smith's got a back, goes wide. Ben Smith for the corner. What a great try.